In a significant and controversial admission, Thailand has confirmed its deployment of cluster munitions against military targets within Cambodian territory, an action that has drawn immediate and sharp condemnation from Phnom Penh. This revelation escalates an already volatile border dispute, with Cambodia swiftly denouncing the use of such weaponry as a grave violation of international law. On the 25th of July, Cambodian Ministry of Defense spokesperson Mali Sochiata articulated the gravity of the situation, stating that Thai forces had executed attacks on 7 distinct locations across Cambodia. Among these, 2 sites were specifically targeted with cluster bombs. Cambodian officials assert that these actions represent a clear breach of international legal frameworks, notably including the Convention on Cluster Munitions, CCM. In response, Thai military spokesperson Winthai Suwari corroborated the information, asserting that cluster munitions were employed only when deemed essential for striking military objectives, with the explicit aim of augmenting their destructive capability. Suwari elaborated on the mechanics, explaining that upon impact, the primary munition disperses numerous submunitions, which then detonate sequentially. Crucially, he differentiated these from anti-personnel mines, claiming they do not pose a long-term threat to civilian populations. He further underscored Thailand's non-membership in the CCM, thereby disavowing any legal obligations under the convention. Understanding cluster munitions, a weapon of controversy. Cluster bombs, artillery shells, rockets, and missiles equipped with cluster warheads are designed to disperse dozens or even hundreds of smaller submunitions over a broad target area. This mechanism significantly expands the destructive footprint compared to a conventional high-explosive warhead, making them highly effective against dispersed targets like troop formations or vehicle convoys. However, their pervasive nature comes with a severe humanitarian cost. A critical flaw in their design is the inherent failure rate of the submunition fuses. A percentage of these smaller munitions fail to detonate upon impact, instead scattering across vast areas, often hidden by vegetation or terrain. Without any precise mapping, these unexploded submunitions, UXO, retain their explosive potential and can be triggered by human contact, posing a deadly threat long after active hostilities have ceased, sometimes even decades later. Estimates suggest that a staggering 60% of all cluster munition casualties occur among civilians engaged in daily activities far removed from active combat zones. Alarmingly, 1/3 of all victims are children, who often mistake the small, brightly colored submunitions for toys, just friendly colored, leading to tragic accidents. Recognizing the indiscriminate and enduring danger posed by these weapons, over 120 nations have become signatories to the Convention on Cluster Munitions. This landmark treaty, which came into effect in 2008, comprehensively prohibits the production, stockpiling, use, and transfer of cluster munitions. Since its inception, approximately 99% of the world's declared cluster munition stockpiles have been destroyed, reflecting a global commitment to eradicating this weapon. However, both Cambodia and Thailand, despite being victims and potential users, remain outside this convention, highlighting a complex geopolitical calculus where perceived military necessity often overrides humanitarian concerns. This non-membership allows them to legally, within their own national frameworks, possess and deploy such weapons. Even as the international community largely condemns them. The escalating border conflict, a historical echo. The recent flare-up between Cambodia and Thailand marks the most severe confrontation between the two neighboring nations in over 10 years. Tensions began to mount on the 23rd of July, culminating in direct clashes near the ancient Tha Muan Thom Temple on the morning of the 24th of July. The conflict rapidly spread to several other points along their shared, often ill-defined, border. Both sides have accused the other of initiating hostilities and employing heavy artillery extensively. This is not an isolated incident, but rather the latest chapter in a long-standing territorial dispute, particularly contentious around ancient Khmer temples situated near the border. The most famous of these is Preah Vihear, whose ownership was decided by the International Court of Justice in 1962 in Cambodia's favor, yet remains a flashpoint. The current fighting around Tha Muan Thom and Tha Krabi temples underscores that these historical sites are not merely cultural heritage, but strategic points in a complex geopolitical chess game. Casualty figures reported by both sides paint a grim picture. Thai officials have stated that the conflict resulted in 20 fatalities, comprising 14 civilians and 6 military personnel, with dozens more injured. The Cambodian Ministry of Defense reported 13 deaths and at least 71 injuries. Diplomatic maneuvers and unanswered questions. The international community swiftly reacted to the escalating violence. Following a closed-door meeting of the United Nations Security Council on the 25th of July concerning the Cambodia-Thailand border conflict, Cambodian Ambassador Chea Keo issued an urgent plea for an immediate and unconditional ceasefire, advocating for a peaceful resolution to the long-standing disagreements. Prior to the Security Council session, Thai Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesperson Nikorndej Balankura indicated signs of de-escalation from the afternoon of the 25th of July. He reiterated Thailand's readiness for negotiations, suggesting that Malaysia, as the current rotating chair of ASEAN, Association of Southeast Asian Nations, could potentially facilitate these discussions. Beyond the headlines, a deeper look and potential undercurrents. While the official narrative points to border disputes and self-defense, the timing and intensity of this conflict, coupled with the controversial use of cluster munitions, invite deeper scrutiny and raise several questions that some analysts might ponder. Is the escalation purely about territorial claims? Or are there underlying geopolitical currents at play? The sudden confirmation of cluster munition use, despite its international notoriety, could be interpreted in multiple ways. A desperate measure, a deliberate show of force, or perhaps even a calculated risk to test international reactions. Some might speculate if the admission was a forced transparency due to undeniable evidence, rather than a voluntary disclosure. Furthermore, see the long-standing nature of these border disputes, often flaring up around ancient temple sites, leads some to consider if these cultural heritage points serve as convenient pretexts for broader strategic objectives. Are there untapped natural resources, such as oil, gas, or mineral deposits, in the disputed border regions that are the true undeclared drivers of this persistent tension? The economic implications of controlling such territories could provide a powerful, albeit unstated, motive for continued confrontation. The non-adherence of both nations to the CCM, while legally permissible for them, highlights highlights a broader geopolitical reality where powerful nations, including major arms producers, also remain outside such conventions, indirectly influencing the availability and perceived legitimacy of these weapons. This raises questions about the true efficacy of international norms when not universally adopted, and whether the humanitarian cost is consistently outweighed by perceived military advantage or strategic leverage. The conflict, therefore, is not just a localized border skirmish, but a microcosm of complex international relations, where historical grievances, national interests, and the grim realities of modern warfare intersect, leaving a trail of human suffering and unanswered questions. The call for peace and negotiation remains paramount, yet the path to a lasting resolution appears fraught with deep-seated complexities and potentially hidden agendas. 1, 2.